Good afternoon, everyone. It's 4 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Welcome to the CTD webinar, Assistive Technology Tools to Meet Student Needs in the Classroom. We're pleased to welcome as our expert today Sharon Plant. She's an educator with over 20 years teaching experience in special ed and currently serves as teacher and director of technology at Eagle Hill Southport School. Sharon's going to demonstrate accessibility features available in a range of devices that can empower students to be independent in completing assignments. We'll also share valuable apps, websites, and resources across academic areas. We look forward to you taking away practical ideas to support all learners in your classroom. I'll go ahead and pass it off to Sharon. Thank you.
Welcome as people keep joining in. Just to give you a little background, I am a special education teacher, but I am also director of technology just because I happen to love it. My school is an independent school for kids with language-based learning disabilities, dyslexia, ADHD, executive function challenges, and we have really worked to empower them with technology for their learning. And I hope to share some of those things that I have learned through that process with you so that you can take back to your school. So one thing I want to talk about is I'm going to go through some things that we would talk about being assistive versus differentiated, and that's kind of a fine line that can often be confused and blurred, but it's the idea of differentiated instruction. It's just really where that process that we apply our learning. I think of that to that whole idea of the universal design for learning, that we approach things that allow students with differing abilities to engage and interact with content and instruction in different ways. Assistive technology is really, as you can see, it's that piece of equipment that is used to increase, maintain, or improve that capability. It's something really required for the student to complete a task successfully. Some of the things I'm going to talk about at the beginning will really be that assistive side. Some of the websites and apps that I'll talk about can really address both in differing ways depending on the student's needs. So we think about today those different types of technology we have. It's amazing. I was just talking about it today at work about the amount of technology we have in our schools today, our kids have in their hands. We really went full technology when we started a one-to-one iPad program with our upper school, which is middle school age, about 5 years ago, and we also started a bring your own device policy, and we are now at about 95%, if not more, students bringing their own devices to our school, which is really empowering. And what families have loved to learn is that how we can engage kids to use technology that they love to, take pictures, ask silly questions, but they can really engage it for their learning and also create some independence, which is, I think, is a key factor for those kids who learn differently, those who have learning disabilities, to find some independence with technology in their learning. So I always like to tell people to start out with the basics, that sometimes the students' needs, I go back to thinking about Dragon dictation. Dragon was one of those keyhole programs that we all relied on so long ago. It is really robust. It is really great. But not every student needs all of that robustness to find a level of independence, a level of accessibility to content and engagement. So it's really starting out with the basics of whatever device a student is using. We are mainly an iPad-based school, so I go to the iOS devices. Often that's what a lot of people have. And if we think about that text-to-speech option in the iOS, in any iPad or iPhone, it's under the accessibility. There are some really great speech options that can be turned on so that the students can just use that built-in accessibility, which is why we rely on the iPad, because it's built in. It's not an add-on layer. Chromebooks, which are very popular in a lot of schools, which I totally appreciate. They are cost-effective. They're really engaging for students. There is a free extension called Speak It that can do text-to-speech from websites. But if you're really in that Chrome environment and you really have a student that struggles, one of my favorites is TextHelp has Read and Write for Chrome. Read and Write Gold was, again, one of those programs around for a long time, really robust, but they created a Chrome extension that's a subscription-based, but it's really beneficial. You can actually use the free version. There's a 30-day trial, and then we'll give you some capability, but not full capability for free. But of course, my school as well, like many, we have gone Google Apps for Education, now known as G Suite, and that Google Voice typing is just free. It's built into Google Docs, and students can use it for that text-to-speech option. And if you're a Mac-based person, they do have built-in and improved those system preferences accessibility options. So if you go under system preferences and accessibility and speech, you'll see some of the various options you can customize with voices and various things under there. I know Windows has some of that, but I know most schools aren't really working in those environments. I find that more maybe high school on up, but there are definitely options out there. And then again, that speech to text. I always love when I can first teach a student when they have an iPad that, you don't just ask those silly questions like, what does the fox say? But that they can use Siri to dictate their writing, to dictate emails, to dictate text messages. My headmaster is actually dyslexic, and he is walking around the building all the time dictating everything because that is the way it works for him best. And as we've taught more and more kids, I went last year and worked with a student who, when he was a little boy who could never write a full paragraph, and once we really engaged him and worked with him on dictation, he could dictate, a 3-paragraph essay just being able to use Siri. Again, if you're in a Chromebook environment, Read and Write Chrome has the text-to-speech and speech-to-text options, so it's really, really great. And in Mac, when we went to Siri, we, in Sierra OS X, which was last year's operating system upgrade, they built in Siri to a device. And yes, you're right, John, it's speech-to-text. But really great options. But there is so much built into today's devices, which is my point, that if you really look at what is there and engage students with that, and they do need work with it, there can be a lot that can be accomplished just using the basics. If you have students who really need to still access paper, there are 2 options I have been engaging with. One, again, we are an iPad environment. One of my favorite tools is an app called Claro Scan Pen, and it is about like $6.99, and you simply take a screenshot of a piece of paper or textbook page. It creates a quick image, and you swipe over the text, and it reads back to the student. I have worked really amazed with how students, when they learn it, takes a little bit of a learning curve, I think, just to how to take the best screenshot and best lighting, but it's a really great tool. Last year, if you're really into assistive technology, there is a great conference yearly in Orlando in January, the Assistive Technology International Association, and I met with this company that created one of the pens that is now out there on the market called C Pen, and it can be used on any paper, and it scans over it and can read back to a student. What's great about that over, I know, an idea like a Claro Scan Pen, if you're in a testing environment or something like that where you don't want a student to have full accessibility to all the things that might be in a device, this is a standalone device. They have one that has a dictionary, one without, just for those testing purposes. It is about $250, but it is actually, I've had hands-on with it. It's a pretty good option if you really need something that is a standalone idea. So we really talk about overall reading accommodations. There's 2 big players in the field for this, TextHelp and Don Johnston. They both have really great products. They are definitely on the market and always creating things, as I talked about, that Read and Write for Google Chrome. It adds in word predictability, text-to-speech, speech-to-text. It has the ability to have students highlight information, and they can pull things they highlight, whether it be on a document or even on a website, and pull them into a new Google document, so that there is a lot they can do. It's really robust in what it does. They've built in now Fluency Tutor into the Chrome extension as well, which allows you to assign things where students can record themselves reading, and you can listen to it later and keep track of those fluency goals that you want for them. It's nice to see they've added that into the Chrome extension as well, and really fluid and ease for the teacher and student. Really more that Chrome or Chrome-based web environment, not going to work on a tablet environment. Don Johnston, one of their great tools that I like to highlight is Snap and Read. This is something that it does have an iPad app. It also functions in Chrome, and it can layer over and allow students to read, have websites and things read to them, and engage a little bit more with some of their reading tools. If you want to know, they are both great companies to touch base with if you want to know more about them. Both companies are really great, and I highly recommend exploring those tools if you need that kind of environment. And the Snap and Read, and from my experience in a tablet, again, an iPad environment, the built-in is just as good, but I do like Snap and Read in a web-based environment. I think it adds a lot to it, but both have really great features and options to do. And I think someone's talking about, yeah, the leveling tool in Snap and Read is a really great point to bring out, Bonnie. Thank you. So another great tool that helps with reading, and this is from TextHelp, is SnapBurner. This was really a game changer for me this year with a student that I had that was using a laptop. So SnapBurner is a Chrome extension. It builds in as you can see, I have what looks like is my Google Drive. So SnapBurner installs folders, a set of folders into your Google Drive. And if you take an image of a document, a PDF, and you drop it in where it says drop to convert, it will convert it for you into accessible text, which was really a good thing for a lot of my students. And I actually tested it with a student this year who was on a laptop base, and I had him install SnapBurner. He had his folders, and as the teacher, I was able to share his SnapBurner folder in Google Drive to me. So if I just wanted to make a document accessible to him, I didn't have to put it in mine, convert it, and share. I just dropped it into his SnapBurner drop to convert, and he automatically had it. So if you just had a few students you need to do this with, that's probably would be the best way to do it. Have them install it, share it to you, and then you could drop whatever needs to be, and it automatically goes there to them. Otherwise, initially I would drop it into mine and then share it out. But it's a pretty seamless, easy thing for a teacher to do because you're not going to the whole big scanning things. Again, I think I just took it with a picture on my phone and dropped it in, and it does all the work for you. So definitely one to check out. So one of the key things I find was always hard is when you come to something like right now with a webinar for an hour, you're hearing a lot of tools, and I see somebody talking about it. It's hard you hear them. I'm telling you as best I can about them without being able to show you everything. One of the things I love about TextHelp is their YouTube channel. They have lots of videos, whether it be an introduction to their videos or a really how to engage. They are really robust and well put together. So if you really want to know more about how to use their tools, subscribe to the TextHelp YouTube channel. You will learn a lot. That's how I've gotten a lot to figure out how their tools use, and they're constantly adding more as they update their tools. So to the person who asked about how this works, definitely go there and check it out. So the key thing is also some resources for the educators as well as families. And the two big players I would talk about would be Bookshare and Learning Ally. Bookshare is free for qualified users, which means you just have to prove that there is a learning disability in place. My school, they've allowed, because we are a special ed school, I can actually qualify all my students. But they use a digitized voice, and it's of literature-based books. So not textbooks. This is not your resource for textbooks, but any student who has a book and wants it in accessible format, this is where they could go and download unlimited books and use whatever tool may be. They have improved it in the last year. It's really a browser-based. You don't need any extensions or add-ons. Quite a robust library, and they're constantly adding more. My favorite on an iPad is to use a third-party app known as Voice Dream Reader. I just really love all the accessibility features in Voice Dream Reader. It's a app that was not designed for accessibility, but the developer is a really great person who has found that is people using it for accessibility, and you can adjust the number of lines that are seen, the text spacing, the line spacing, the colors, adjusting the speech rate just within the app, and download Bookshare into it, as well as many other resources. So if you're in an iOS environment, checking out VoiceStream, but really just looking at Bookshare and sending families can qualify or schools can qualify for those students. It's really great tool, and they keep improving it. I had a conversation with someone at the Assistive Technology Conference, and they're really eager to get more people knowing about their service. Another big one is Learning Ally. They are a resource for many things. They are fee-based. Families can seek it on their own, or schools can work with them directly. Big difference is they have a human voice reading, and they're really that resource for textbooks. but they also have literature books, and they have their own tools to use for that. Both great resources. I know families that use both. I know teachers that use both, and really a place to go. Learning Ally is also really great about having other information to help families out. So if you are a person who's working with a family who needs a bit for more information, Learning Ally is one of those places they can start to have a bit more information, but also for teachers. So two really great resources. So if we're going to get into reading a little bit more, there's also that idea of decoding, particularly if you're probably working at that elementary level. So some of the tools that are out there, Lexy is a big one. It has been around for a significant amount of time. My schools used it from when it was a disk-based, and now they're web-based. It's really great. It can be used from very young ages to older ages. They have two programs, Core 5, which is really more geared for elementary just based on the way it looks. It's a little bit more gamey, a little bit more cutesy. But they have a older program called Strategies, but Strategies does work with students who are older and are really low decoders. So you can really, it's just designed a little bit more to look a little less gamey, a little bit more formal, so the students don't feel like they're doing things. It also goes a little bit further up. They also have started with a program known Rapid Assessment, which is really designed to delve deeper into giving teachers and schools a little bit more data for students and how to program them, something actually my school is starting to use this year to really see what data points we can get out of this Lexia program. We use it as support. It is not meant to be for instruction. But it can really provide some great practice, and teachers can design and assign students to work on specific things. So even though there's an assessment piece within it, even if you don't use the rapid assessment, teachers can adjust to say, I just want the students to work on these things, which is really great. Sound Literacy is an iOS app. If you are a school or a person using Wilson, I think this goes back to which I have used Wilson, the reading program. They have that magnetic board where those tiles that you can move around and manipulate, students can maneuver and manipulate. Sound Literacy is that on an iOS app. And so it's pretty nice because you don't have to carry it around. It's about $25, so it's not inexpensive at all, but it was designed by a speech-language pathologist. There is no sound with the letter tiles, so it's just purely for manipulation. But what is also nice in it, if you work with several students and you use this app, you can have tile sets for a number of students within the app, and goes all the way up through high levels of sound structures and things, not just the letters, but the combinations and pairings and things like that. So definitely worth checking out. If you're on Facebook, she has a really great Facebook page providing information all the time and ways to use it. So it's really great. ClassKick. So ClassKick is not an app really designed for anything specific. I equate it to one of my favorite apps, Explain Everything. Problem with Explain Everything was it is only iOS, and it has a cost to it, but really can do some great things with it. So ClassKick is basically a plain whiteboard app. It is free. It is device agnostic, so they have a website, they have an app, it can be used anywhere, but I, as a person who teaches reading, have found ways to leverage it to teach reading. And I'm going to give a demonstration of an activity of a student that I had doing that. But so you just have to think open-minded that there are tools within ClassKick for students to record their voice, teachers to record their voice, students to draw, teachers to draw, add images, add text. It is blank, but there are some great activities you can do to engage with it. One of the other things I love about ClassKick is if I, as the teacher, will design a lesson to engage students. When I do that, I can then share it to them through a code and a roster. It's a pretty basic thing. And I, as the teacher, when I share it, can go in and see live or later, it saves the information, what each student is doing at that exact time. The student can, in the app or on the website, there's a little icon to raise their hand to ask for help. And I can go on to the student's screen within the app myself and provide feedback. So yes, ClassKick. So I think this is the next, the video we're going to have will be to show a student doing a reading activity that I designed, and I'll explain it. This might buffer a little bit, but hopefully you get the idea.
Sure.
Wildly. Zach, do your stuff.
Finish
Jake. Zach,
So you can see
do your
what is on the
stuff.
screen is directions of what the student is supposed to do, what she was supposed to mark, the suffix, the ending, which she could do. She had to copy it over for spelling purposes and then record herself saying it for decoding purposes. And I retain this data. It stays there even after she closes it out. I have it on my end and can use it for showing your parents later, showing her. What I also like about this is you can build in numerous things throughout this slides and it's shared to them, but I sometimes have a student who can't complete as many. They can't complete or they go too fast. So I can say, okay, when we stop, but I still have all that data and everyone can work at their own pace. And it really is you can create many things within this tool to engage students because there are definitely, multimodal tools for them to be part of the activity. So for reading for differentiated nonfiction, I think most people are probably most common with Newsela. Newsela has been around for a little bit. It is a really great place for nonfiction articles. And when a teacher can go in and assign it, and it can be adjusted by Lexy level. The teacher and the student have the ability to adjust it by Lexy level. The students don't know what that means. They just see a number and they go up and down. And the teacher, if you can get the feedback at what level they read it at, and it's followed by about 4 multiple choice questions. You can also add in some writing assignments to certain articles. There is a free level, which is one if you ever start with it, I start with a free level, and then there is a paid level that gives a little bit more teacher data. But a great place, I think, for science and social studies or working with kids with nonfiction articles because, again, one student, and I'm going to give an example in a minute, that you can have the same article adjusted to different levels, but they're getting the same content idea. So you can have a student who is reading an article at a lower level, but they're going to still be able to engage in that class discussion or group discussion because they have the same concept of what is being written. Front Row also has a component to this. Front Row has also a free and a paid level. One of the reasons I'm a fan of Front Row for the idea of the nonfiction is when it goes in, it gives the student a brief assessment and then adjusts to give an idea of what reading level they should be at. So when the teacher assigns an article, the teacher controls the level of the article for the student. So I have had in the past when I did Newsela, students would pick the really high level or the really low level, and I didn't want them there. So I like the controls of Front Row because at each time I assign an article, I can leave it where it says I should, adjust it up, adjust it down, and the student can't touch it. Again, it is nonfiction, and it is followed by about 4 multiple choice questions. So here is an example of a Newsela article, and I could adjust it to a Lexile level or assign it at this level to be read, but the students have the ability within the sides to pick what they're going to read it at. And again, the same article written at a 2nd grade level will adjust it, changes the title, changes the wording, makes it more simplistic, but allows the student to, again, have the same information, just written at a level that is more appropriate to them. Some other tools that you can use to support comprehension. One of my favorites right now is Actively Learn. I use it with literature classes. They have free content, they have some paid content. I just used it for a literature class last year, and I rented a book through their service, and I, as a teacher, could build in questions directly through the text, so I didn't have to say, read chapter 1 tonight and go fill out this Google Doc of questions. The questions were right within there, and I could put them wherever I wanted, and I could give feedback right within the tool and have students go in and adjust them and fix them. They could see each other's answers afterwards. Really great tool. It's free except if you're going to rent the books. Common Lit is another one, very much similar. ReadWorks, which is another robust service with a lot of articles. They have text sets, they have nonfiction, fiction. They have a digital tool that they came out with. If you're working with younger kids, Reading Comprehension Booster is a way to have students show what they know in the app. It's kind of fun and cute versus on setting and characters, just another way to engage them. Lit charts is something that, to me, I think of back the old Cliff Notes, those yellow and black books. I can picture them now for all those tools. Lit charts is a more modern of that, created by SparkNotes. So just some other tools that are out there that you can engage students in different ways. Again, one of the reasons I use Actively Learn as well is that for that accessibility piece, students can listen to the text within Actively Learn. So if they can't be reading it, they have the ability to listen to it through a tool built into their site. So before we go on, does anybody have any specific questions about reading tools, any of the tools that I shared? I see, Sally, you talked about, primarily English speakers. That is a population that I work with. But I think some of the tools out there might have some ability to work with English language speakers, but it's not so much strong in the area that a population that I am working with. And again, I'm going to throw a lot at you. Yes, Reading Booster is an app, and it's, again, definitely for elementary students that allows them to share how they know and create that knowledge and engaging with text. Thank you, Nancy. Newsela does have articles in Spanish.
Sharon is looking for information about maybe having an apps to photo a page of text and have it read to the person. Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, that would go back to if you're using an app, that would be that Claro. Let me go back quick so I can. The Claro Scan Pen is an app. It will take pictures of text and immediately be able to read within it. It's so much simpler. There was one a while ago I used Prismo, but it was a little quirky and didn't always take it. This is a really Claro Scan Pen. If you have a student who has any tablet device, again, it's Android or Apple, is a really great tool to introduce people to. I like it because I also introduce it to kids who have an iPhone who might then go out and need to have a menu read to them and talk about that conversation, that they could take a picture of anything out there on their phone, on their tablet, and have any text read to them. And thank you, Bonnie. That, again, if you work with that population, that Snap and Read, which is that Don Johnston tool, is able to convert text to Spanish and level the text in Spanish. That's really great information to know for those working with that population. That's really great. So move along into some areas of writing. So one of the things we focus on too is grammar practice. No Red Ink has been around for a bit of time. It's one I've used with my writing students. It's really a nice way to engage them and beyond, I think, of those traditional text worksheets that you had to mark up and things like that. It's also neat because students, when they go in, they answer some questions about their preferences, and then some of the sentence work that you do, the website creates sentences about those topics, so kids kind of find it when they see their name or their interests pop in them as they're working on them. One that was introduced to me last year at an ed camp, I haven't had a lot of time to play with it because I didn't have a writing class, but was told that it was a favorite over No Red Ink was Grammar Ninja. And having taken a look at it, it looks really engaging. I have some writing teachers I'm going to have work with it this year. But both just a nice different way that provides something that kids can do online so that they can use, if they need it, those accessible features to listen to text and things like that. Which is why I like using websites with kids who learn differently, because they can use built-in features if they're not built into the tool to listen and engage with text. And if you're on an iOS environment, there are two apps that I love from McGraw-Hill, Grammar Wonderland. There's the primary and there's elementary. It's definitely gamey and game-based, but a fun way to have students work with the concepts of grammar. So we talked about writing engagement, one of those really challenging areas for kids with learning disabilities. So one of my favorite apps that I had started with lower schools was Write About This. It is a paid app. They do have a free level, but it's images that have, and they have a space within there. There's an image, and they usually have 3 different writing prompts students can do, and they work with it right within the environment. But it definitely was elementary based, and about a year or so ago, they came out with Write About. Write About is a website, and it's meant for those older age students, so middle school on up. So if you're looking for some great writing prompts and ways to have students do that, those are 2 great tools to engage with from the same company. One of my favorites has been for a while just to engage students, because writing topics, whether it be whatever, it was always so hard for them to develop. Storybird is, so it's more of that tool to create engagement, not necessarily accessibility, but it is a site full of great, amazing artwork, and students can really go through and craft their own stories. They create a book and do all the writing right within the website. It is device agnostic, so you can just access the website anywhere, but if you go in and check out the artwork, it would inspire anyone to write. If you're using an iPad or anything like that, Story Starters is another great tool for younger kids just to give an idea to help prompt to get them going. Snap and Type, where I think of what Write About This did was they took a picture and created a prompt. Snap and Type, you can take a picture yourself and create the prompt and have students work with that. And a new tool that came across last year is called Writable K-12. They're really great people. They actually had started another company that I had used related to books, kind of like Actively Learn, where you could build questions in, and then it got bought by Renaissance Learning, and these people then went and created Get Writable, Writable K-12. They used, over the last year, been working to pilot it, so actually if you're willing to pilot it, they will give it to you for free. The teacher end currently is free. The student end is about, I think it was $1 a month. I just had a conversation with them. They went away from the iPad app. It's now just all web-based, no matter what the device is. But what was really great is the engagement and feedback that can happen right within the tool, that you can provide feedback, peers can provide feedback anonymously. There's a lot of layering. I had my writing department head talk with the creators, and she was really impressed by the layer of scaffolding and things that could be done within this tool to provide students writing feedback. So definitely one to look at. They are really great, the two creators. They're happy to Google Hang it in to share more again, and are looking for schools to pilot it to help their data. So if you have enough, you can use it for free. Mind mapping, always a big thing to help students brainstorm ideas. Inspiration's been around for a really long time. I'm still not a fan of the desktop software. I love the iOS software. One of the big things for me with the iOS software is when you create a mind map in Inspiration on the iPad, you can convert it to an outline and export that outline directly into Pages. So a student doesn't need to then go recreate this outline or the words they've already put down on paper. They can simply take that outline now on Pages and turn those brainstorming ideas directly into sentences, or printing it out and having to copy it over. So I'd always run into this challenge where I couldn't do that in Google Docs. And luckily for the power of Twitter, had reached out to a couple of companies that did mind mapping, and MindMeister reached out and said, oh, we do have this way to do that. So if you're in a Google environment using Chrome or web-based, MindMeister is, they have a Chrome extension. It's a website. There's a level of free to paid, depending on how many mind maps you want to make. But they have directions on how to take that outline or that mind map and export it into a Google Doc. So just like I explained for Inspiration, it would be there in an outline format, and the student can edit it and turn those ideas directly into sentences, really taking away a step, which is what can be key for kids. That can be a struggle for writing. Why am I going to go create a mind map and you're going to ask me to type the same thing over? That takes away a layer. Poplet I love just particularly for elementary school kids because it is simple. It is very clean. They can't add a lot of things. I have trouble with Kidspiration with some of my elementary school kids, and even Inspiration, they want to add all the pictures. There is none of that in Poplet. Poplet is just very basic. You can do, they actually have a great teacher resource area with other ideas on how to use their tool. I love it too. I've used it with kids because you can color code the boxes. So I might have them color code, and then one color, this is your paragraph, and the next color, this is your next paragraph. But just simple and easy, particularly for, I think, those ADD kids. And one people don't often think about for mind mapping, it's a really open tool, but I've used it, is Padlet. I like Padlet because it is, again, open source. That does not matter the device. I, as a teacher, could create a topic and share it out to my students, and they can all brainstorm at the same time onto the same Padlet. So it can be, you can be showing up on the screen, it could be on their screens, and we could brainstorm ideas together and craft them into a story. Just a tool that is more open, but can be used in an idea of mind mapping. And again, we go back to those two big companies, Don Johnston and TextHelp. Don Johnston, if you're looking for more things with stronger word prediction, that text-to-speech, speech-to-text that has a little bit more to it than what's built into devices, they have Co-Writer. It's been around for a very long time. They now have Co-Writer Universal, so if you have a student working on it at school and they need to go home to a different device, they can access that same tool anywhere. It's really one of the tools that I really liked a lot. TextHelp, with that read and write, that is one of the same kind of tool to be using. If you're a teacher, by the way, read and write for Chrome is free for the teacher with an education-based email. So when you go sign up and you download it, you will have all of those services for free. So one, you could go in and play with it and see what it's like, or have a student use your device. But both of those add a little bit more in than what is built into devices for that word prediction. And again, some of the vocabularies, and read and write again has a picture dictionary and the ability to highlight, but they both have a lot of more layered scaffolding for writing. And then of course, as we talked about before, there is voice typing in Google Docs. One key thing that I've been working with a student is my big challenge is when students type things, I try to really encourage them to then highlight it and listen to it, or if they're speaking it, just having it read back to them and how to teach them how to do that, because sometimes things don't come out the right way, or we have autocorrect, which totally changes it. So I have one particular student I've worked with this specifically on. She really wants to be typing. Word prediction was not speaking to text was not great. Word prediction was not her avenue. She was really wanting to type, but she was not paying attention to what she typed. So this is again an iOS feature in accessibility, that under speech there's a feature you can turn on called typing feedback. So as soon as the student starts typing, it reads back exactly what they've typed so they can hear immediately what is being said and hopefully make those corrections and pay attention to that versus having to go back and highlight it and have it read to them. So just another feature where you can layer in a layer of scaffolding that a student can hear what's going on and make those corrections and being aware of what they're putting down on paper, which can often be a big challenge. And of course, there's always that grammar checking. The two big ones out there are Grammarly and Ginger. Ginger has an iOS app. Grammarly is just web-based. They both are great tools. They have a free level and a paid level, but just to help students with some of the grammar corrections, I use it when I write reports. I put it in there to make sure I worded some things well. They also have layers where they can add in, help give you suggestions on how to write things in other ways. But really great tools. Again, they both have Chrome extensions, but if you're in an iOS environment, Ginger is going to be your option. But I find as an adult, definitely a great tool for me, so really engaging students to help them with some of that. Again, giving independence is so key, and this gives them a layer of independence to do some of the correcting on their own, because unfortunately we're not always there, and they need to learn what is available to them to help them through this process. It is a tool that I find I have to spend some time helping students work with so they realize what it's doing. It's not just a here, have it, and walk away. Probably most of the tools could be said for that. And then there's always digital storytelling, which I think can be really done at any age. There are a lot of tools out there are designed for younger students. Puppet Pal is a great iOS app. Toontastic, one I've loved for a while, got bought by Google. They've done some great things with it. If you're in the Chrome environment, Powtoon is a great place for that digital storytelling. Storyboard, that is a website, makes comic-like digital storytelling, really kind of fun to play with and create comic strips. And a tool that is really designed for many things would be Adobe Spark Video. This allows people to put in images, text, and then record their voice. So you could have an image and go through and tell a story with just the images that are there, and students record their voice slide by slide. A little bit more than it would be like in a presentation, like a PowerPoint keynote kind of tool. It's more designed. There's music. They can play with the text. It's free, which I love, and can be a lot of fun for students to play with. It works in a website as well as an app. They have, if you're an older level for storytelling, although not digital, Adobe has another layer up from Spark that involves images and text. Kind of to me, I think like website based, but it's a little bit more, instead of just taking an image in a Google Doc and plopping it on there, there's a layer where images roll over text. a lot of fun to play with. It's called Adobe Spark Post. But if you check those out, really different ways to engage students with writing. I love digital storytelling because I can get students giving words and crafting stories without having to worry about the laborious tasks that may be typing or handwriting. And once they get engaged in the idea of storytelling, sometimes those are the students that I really move into using dictation to do their writing because they've now learned how to tell a story. It's not a hard sell to then say, okay, let's tell that same story, and it's going to appear in text onto a document. And another great tool many people are a fan of is Book Creator. It can be used in really any content area. I love that they've only been iOS for a very long time, but they just this summer released a Chrome extension. So teachers and students can use this to create and share content. It's definitely multimodal. I've used it with students to create their own book, and then they can share it out. But even if you're as a teacher, I've had people share to me how they've used it to create accessible text for their students, because you can use the accessibility features of a device. You can add in your own voice to read things to them. You can add in images where it may be. It's really kind of a blank slate to create it as whatever it may be. They actually just created a really great Facebook group for people to share ideas. So if you're on Facebook, check see if you can find the Book Creator Facebook group. There's teachers from all over the world sharing how they're using it. But there's a lot, and really amazing that a lot of people who work with kids who learn differently, who have learning disabilities in many levels, who are using it just for that purpose to give content to students or have students provide content back to them. And I'll jump through quickly to spelling too, because part of writing. One of my favorites is Touch, Type, Read, and Spell. It is a subscription base, but it provides sound feedback, word feedback. It's really building in for those kids, those words and sound and typing. Has a really great demo on the screen to show them where their fingers should be. They have an iPad version as well as a web-based version. Can really provide some of that great typing practice with also that reading and spelling. Word Wizard is an iOS app. I think somewhat back to the Wilson tool of the magnets, but it does provide sounds. Some of the sounds are not 100% great if you're really a purist, but can be a fun way for kids to play with sounds and letters to say words. Simplex Spelling has a series of iOS apps that really, to me, follow that structured literacy. I'm an Orton Gillingham trained teacher, has some really great apps that can help provide individualized practice. And another way to always engage kids is one of my favorite tools is Vocabulary and Spelling City. There are some fun activities that are beyond the traditional spelling activities for students, but there's also the accessibility features of reading. And I'm going to show you one more time in that tool with Class Kick that I used for spelling because, again, it's a blank slate. So I'm going to give you a spelling activity that I did with a student for that.
Thankless. Thankless.
I don't know why I keep touching that. I feel like I'm going to the next page.
Nameless.
A little bit, but one of the key things is
Nameless.
It does not matter the device. He's typing, and there's no word prediction, so it can't help him with the typing. I have students on their iPads. They're doing the handwriting. They can listen to the word as many times as they choose. They usually do this with headphones. So again, they can work at their own pace to work through the different words that I want them to do. I could create 3 different lessons. So if I have students working on one group of words, another student working on another group of words, they can all be working at the same time without my direct intervention or need to pay attention, and I can be wandering around watching what they're doing. And they, again, can be working at their own pace, making those corrections, listening to words as much as they can. So it allows for a lot of differentiation, and again, I can see what they're doing live. I'm going to jump right into some of the other areas because I know we're getting near on time, and I'll take any questions towards the end. So for math, if you're in an iOS environment, 2 of my favorite tools are MyScript Calculator. MyScript is neat because it allows students to simply to handwrite the problem directly onto the screen. Some things are a bit that you need to make sure you write it in the correct direction, but the students can cross through things, change things, and it solves it for them, but they can just simply write it onto the screen. Of course, if handwriting is a challenge, this is not a great tool for that, but I've had some students struggle with traditional calculators, and this can be a tool to solve that. ModMath is actually an app that was designed for parents of a student who was dyslexic, dysgraphic, dyscalculia. And it is meant to be that idea of traditional graph paper, which we often have students use who have trouble with lining numbers up. This is what it does. That keypad is not a calculator. It does not solve the problem for the student. They simply use that keypad to input the numbers and make sure they're lining it up, and they have to solve the problem and then can share it to their teacher. So it's that idea of graph paper online, and again, using a keypad so they don't have an issue if they're having that dysgraphia issue with writing numbers. Two tools that are can be used for math in a bigger realm, really for that differentiation environment. Front Row is one actually my school moved to last year away from IXL. It allows me to really differentiate. I have some students, I'm getting them back this year, they're in middle school and they're working at a low elementary level. Front Row allows me to easily differentiate for every student what they should be working on. It does an assessment within the tool and tells me what level the student is working on, and every time I assign an area, it automatically levels it for the students I assign it to, so I don't have to do that leveling. It keeps track of that, gives me percentages, gives me a lot of feedback. There is a free level. That's actually how we got into it. Some teachers were using it with students. There was a lot of positive feedback, and so we went to a paid level. They have a kind of a gamey area of earning coins. What I love about it too is when the students learn coins, they can't always go to what they call the piggy store. It's controlled when it appears, and it is time sensitive, so they only have a limited time. So they can't get lost in the fun. They have to do the work. One I've heard about from a lot of teachers for feedback is Dreambox Learning. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. I just actually had a conversation with them this week. They have an amazing layer of robustness and scaffolding and feedback and ability to tailor to students' needs. It's probably a little bit more expensive, but if you have the funding, I was really impressed with the layering of scaffolding and support that they provide and the teacher report feedback that they provide as well. You can't get a small number of licenses, but I definitely think if you have a lot of students to use this with, again, it can be used, either of those two could be used in any classroom so that it would address the needs of any level of students, whether it be the student who is on grade level to the student who needs a lot of support, and easy for the teacher to assign and manipulate that. A huge thing that came out, there was a great Google add-on I had heard about in the last 2 years called GMath, and it got bought by TextHelp as a Google add-on. So it's no longer free, but that it's a really great way to engage that G Suite environment to create math problems. So as a teacher that you can speak in, you can type in, it will recognize math and create it text with a speech, and you could speak in the problem, it'll formulate it for you, and students can also use this add-on to answer those problems with those really complex tools. They have a great video on this, as I talked about before, that TextHelp YouTube channel. They have a really great video that can do justice to this, but definitely more than I can. But if you really have those math teachers who haven't not wanted to use a Google Doc for math, which I completely understand, it is not easy, this is the answer to that. It really is a great way to create math sheets in a web-based environment. And some more math that you can look at, ClassKick. As I told you before, it's really an open environment. I have used it to create math problems, and again, students can work on the math problems that I share to them. I have that data and feedback for later. They can work at their own pace. You can really, it's free and easy to use. If you're in an iOS environment, some of my students' favorites, Sushi Monster, definitely has various different levels for addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. Dragon Box, again, for those lower levels. And then if you have students older, Algebra 12 Plus, which is, again, from Dragon Box, a really great tool for those higher level ideas. And although we often talk about, no, we don't like worksheets for students because it's not accessible, one of my big challenges with worksheets is always the busyness of them for my students. So a website I use is called the mathworksheetsite.com. I love their websites because they're not cluttered, and many of them provide an option for you to have a certain number of problems on the page to even create less busyness, because that busyness is what can distract them. There's not enough room. That site is probably one of the best places I've had, and they have a whole plethora of topics for you to print out worksheets for students on many different topics. And kind of wrapping up towards study skills, Notability has been a great iOS app. They have a Mac app, but I like Notability on the iPad for the engagement of students can draw, they can type, they can write. If you're familiar with it, what's out there known as sketchnoting, where students can add draw and words and word art to show their demonstration of knowledge and take notes. Notability is a really great tool for that. They have been reached out before for a lot of great feedback on how to do that, and have notebooks to organize those notes within it as well. I have a friend who is a big proponent of Microsoft OneNote, particularly for high school on up. Again, like Notability, it has that ability to organize within notebooks and structure that, so it's really helpful for that executive function idea to organize, but also a place to take notes within a environment that is, they can be typing and things like that. Both great tools, but again, older students I think would be that OneNote place to go. Notability really could be any age. My headmaster, again, as I shared, is dyslexic. He loves Notability, although the idea, if they're in an iPad environment right now, it sounds like iOS 11, when it comes out, Notes is going to challenge that and be another great tool. But I love also teaching kids to take notes in other ways. If they're very visual, maybe those words are not going to be their idea. In Notability, too, you can record OneNote as well, so they can record lecture and hear it again later. If you're in, Quizlet's been around for a while, but Quizlet is just a great flashcard tool where you can add images, you can add text, you can add voice, so that it's not just that traditional flip back and forth. There can be a definitely multimodal way to engage with content, whether the teacher creates it or the student creates it. I had a science teacher class last year that I was teaching, and this was really crucial because I could read those complex terms that the students couldn't decode. I could add an image that would help, and they could access the content to study. And if you have a student doing research, a tool that can help when they can't figure out those subtopics is Instagrok. Instagrok, you can kind of gather from the image, if they type in a topic, it will give you subtopics, and you can explore those subtopics. So it really is a great way to research information and expand a topic that a student may not have as much familiarity with, but can go on and research that out. And the last big area would be engagement. It's for our kids, so those who learn differently, engagement is so key because so often it cannot be in that traditional way, or they tune away from that traditional way. Kahoot is a big fan favorite at my school. It is that idea of game-based learning. They traditionally, up until about now, it had to been done live. The questions were on the screen. The student picked boxes on their device based on color. Challenge I found for some of my learners was they couldn't do that far point reading and then touch the screen, or they couldn't read the content. So I had found a tool called Quizzes. Quizzes is just like Kahoot. One of the things I really liked about it was that it had the answer choices on the students' devices so they could see it and they didn't have to keep looking at the board and looking back. If they had the iOS app, it read the choices to them. It was a huge game changer for me. Well, I was really excited that Kahoot is updating to have an app that they tell me that is going to have that screen reading ability. So yes, Paige, exactly why I did not use Kahoot was there was no screen reading ability. They have said it's coming out sometime. They said at the back to school they're releasing an app so that they say it's going to be able to use the screen accessibility tool. What I liked about Quizzes is it automatically did it. We will see what Kahoot does. Quizzes just automatically read back to the student. Didn't have to do any of the highlighting or accessibility feature. So stay tuned for Kahoot. It sounds like they're hearing it and are making some help to hope to make those changes for students. But again, I really liked that Quizzes, the questions and answers were on the students' devices, so if they couldn't look up or it was far away or the distractibility. But I love both tools, so great ways to engage kids because it's fun, it's gamey, they want to participate, they want to know information, so please check those out. And a huge one that I'd heard about for a long time but never had to use was Edpuzzle. I mainly teach reading, was not a tool I needed to use. I gained, by accident, a science class last year due to an unfortunate thing with a teacher who had to take leave. And I had sixth graders who were struggling with decoding, so I didn't know how to engage them with content. And I knew I wanted to use video, but how to engage video in an interactive way to have students really show me their knowledge and engage with it. And Edpuzzle is you can take videos from many sources. They have it within their sources. It's free, amazingly. They have a paid level. I have not found a use for it. But you can pull in videos, you can crop videos, but you as a teacher can embed questions throughout the video that students have to respond to. It can be multiple choice questions, it can be short answer questions, and you can go in and grade them. You see how long the students watched it. You see if they had to repeat a section before going to answer the question. And it's really great for homework, particularly if your school's still doing homework or really in class, and students, again, can work at their own pace and listen to it. I kind of think of that idea of flipping. I would send students home with the video to watch to get some information, and then we could come in and talk about it because discussion was fine. They just couldn't do with the paper content and of a traditional textbook or any articles based on their decoding levels, but their comprehension levels allowed them to engage with the information being provided in Edpuzzle. So if you're a person who has accessibility or needs to use videos, it's a really amazing tool to use to engage students with for their ability to have information shared in a non-traditional format. Another tool just quickly to share with you is the UDL Toolkit. It's a site that is created by some people that I know are really great. They're constantly trying to add to it, but other tools, there are so many tools out there. I've shared with you a bunch, but they're definitely not the end-all, be-all to everything. So this is a great place to go check out and explore other options that are out there related to many different topic areas. So that's UDLToolkit.wikispaces.com. They're constantly trying to add to it and update it as quickly as they can. So I appreciate, there's a lot of information I've thrown at you. I'm running out of time, but I'm really hoping you gained at least one thing out of it. If people walk away with one tool to try and engage, I really hope I've done you well. Feel free to contact me if you have more questions, would like more information to share. You can reach me at splante@mac.com. I'm also on Twitter at iPlant. But please feel free to reach out to me if you have further questions, or maybe I didn't address an area. But again, there's so many tools out there that if I can't provide you the answer, I can definitely send you to someone who can. I also encourage you a great conference, Assistive Technology Conference in Orlando, and being in the Northeast, I love going in Orlando in January, but find one in your area. So again, I appreciate CTD for giving me this opportunity to share with you guys. They are a great resource. They're on Twitter. Follow them for many great, amazing resources that they share out as well.
Thanks, Sharon. That was great. Again, we will have the recording and presentation and a list of links posted tomorrow afternoon, and we'll send an email to anyone that's registered. Thanks for everyone for joining, and thanks again, Sharon.
I appreciate it. Have a great afternoon, everyone.